Good evening, everyone. I'm assuming that I have public comment this evening. Who would like to speak?
I would like to speak.
Mr. Wetzel,
Would you like me to?
you can stand up if you come. We're gonna see, if you stand around there, they can make you, he can make you sit down, right?
Yeah, if he stands here, I think they can see him and he can see you.
Okay,
Whatever.
good. Yeah, stand right there.
So
What about that big chair?
that'll be fine.
Great.
If I stand over here
You're good.
and face in this general direction,
They should be able to see you.
good, okay.
Yeah,
My name is Kim Wetzel, and I am a 50+ year resident of the town of Caroline. I've been a business person in this community for most of those years. I've had several businesses, still operate 2 businesses in the town of Caroline. And for someone that's no longer involved in agriculture, I'm a significant landowner. To that end, I have built certain structures on my properties so that in my retirement, when that day comes, that I could derive some income from my property. Some of the proposed things that they're talking about in zoning are going to deny me the ability to do that. So I would like to make the zoning people aware of some of the things. You know, how are they going to address some of the existing things on properties? For instance, I have the only working airport in the town of Caroline. There have been as many as 3 in the town of Caroline. Mine is the remaining airport. And I don't see anything in the zoning things. I haven't checked every page, every single thing, but to my knowledge, my airport's not been addressed. I would like the town, the zoning people in particular, to take a good look at some of the things that they're proposing. And which really begs the question, what is the ultimate purpose? What's the criteria? What's the ulterior motive that maybe is not being articulated by some of the town board members as they work this thing through the process? We have lots and lots of regulations on the books, which the town has pretty much ignored for many, many years that pertain to land use and that sort of thing. So I just would like to address the board, the people that are involved in the zoning, and to take a good hard look at this thing, because in my case, you're looking at my retirement. Next year I turn 80. I've been in business in the town of Caroline for 52 years. 52 years. And had several successful businesses operated here in the town. And so I would like to see the character of the town not get totally turned into one more township, because I think we're one of the 2 in Tompkins County that doesn't have zoning at this point.
thank you, Mr. Wetzel.
Thank you.
I will try to find out about the airport. I do an actual lot of work right now as a consultant for our airport. And airports come up under FAA regulation, not really local regulations, but I will inquire and get back to you.
Well, okay, and I appreciate your concern about that, but I'm concerned about it as a town thing. The town doesn't make any mention of the airport. So who has precedent? If my airport's been there, and it's been there since 1970.
Yeah, I think it would be the FAA, but we will consult and I'll get back to you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Is there anyone else who wants to speak this evening?
I'd like to.
Please give me your name.
Sure. Dwayne Scott, I live on Hartford Road.
Would you mind where Kim was?
Yeah, because they can see you
I'm
then.
not that fast, sorry, with the camera thing.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Great.
Go ahead.
So first of all, I'd just like to commend the zoning commission. I mean, you guys have gone through an awful lot, and I know it's got to be a tough job. One of the things I like to recommend, and if it's at all possible, you guys could put it on your agenda, on your meeting in your minutes at the beginning of every meeting. If you guys could corporately just ask each other, is zoning really needed? And I know you guys were commissioned to actually enact zoning laws that the board is going to approve. I mean, I think we can all agree the board's going to approve them. It doesn't matter how many signatures the community can come up with. They're gonna enact them. They're just gonna bullet through it. And there's nothing we can do about that. You guys, on the other hand, in your own good conscience, could be looking at this every day or every time you get together and ask each other, do we really need this? Are we really accomplishing anything? Does Caroline need zoning? Personally, I don't think it does. There's a lot of people that do. Currently, there's a petition with close to 1,100 signatures that are saying, stand down. We don't need this now. We don't need it. That's far more, that's almost as many signatures as people have ever voted in this town. These are people that are asking you to stand down. I know, Dean, you have said, I am a person of commitment and dignity. I've been asked to do something. I'm gonna follow it through. Darn it, I'm gonna do it. But at some point, let your conscience be your guide, because you don't always have to do something just because you were told. If you guys, as a committee, went before the town board and said, folks, it's been a long time, we've done our due diligence, we've done a lot of research, we've listened to all the people, we've had multiple question and answer things, we've heard what people have to say, and to be honest with you, we just gotta recommend this isn't what Caroline needs right now. And if the zoning board was to get together and propose that to the town, what's the worst thing that could happen? You guys all get to go home and spend the rest of your summer with your family. You don't have to do this.
I'm sorry, you only have 20 more seconds.
And I mean, I pretty much have asked this question before, how many signatures will it take? And nobody will answer that from the town because they will not commit to it. And I really think you guys, the zoning committee, can do something about this and forget your commitment, use your conscience.
Your time's
That's
up.
all
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna say. Next meeting, bring it up every time, put it on your agenda. Somebody bring it up.
Mr.
Do we
Scott,
really need
your
it?
time's up.
Okay,
And you
thank you
spell
for
your
your time.
name DW or DU? I want to get it right in the minutes.
Excuse me,
Do you spell your name DW or DU?
DUAN.
Okay, just want to get it right in the minutes. Thank you.
Thank you for your
I
time.
wasn't going to, but I can't resist.
I never thought you could, Peter.
Fair enough. I pretty much echo what Scott had to say, but a little differently, although I don't share the pessimism about what the town board is going to do. Chance that the town board might decide in the fullness of time that, as John Barber put it, the town of Caroline is not ready for zoning. I think that that's just as true today as it was 10 years ago when I was on the board. In terms of the board recommending that zoning does not occur, the board's recommendation, there's nothing in the statute that prevents that. And it would be illogical if it were prohibited, because if you were forced to come up with some sort of a positive zoning recommendation, draft law, whatever, then that presupposes that the decision's already been made. I think I'm on firm logical ground to assert that, therefore, you have the option, necessarily have the option to say our recommendation is no zoning. So I think that you would be on firm legal ground and firm logical grounds to do that. The last thing I want to bring up, Kim reminded me of something talking about the airport. And this is my own confusion, and maybe at some point, Gene, you could spell it out better, because I'm still confused about what the defaults are on the use tables. If something is not specifically permitted, it is prohibited. I think we've been through that, correct?
Yep.
Now, is that the case in general with zoning? In other words, if the zoning law does not mention airports, does that mean that airports are not allowed in the town?
I will, as I said, talk with someone about that. I doubt it means that, because I think they're all coming under FAA regulation.
Okay.
And my understanding is that it is practically impossible to close an airport.
Okay,
Once an airport is open,
but in
if
general,
you've ever gotten money from the FAA, I don't know if you have
Got what?
money from the FAA?
No.
Okay, if you had, you can't close it.
Paid a lot of money.
yeah, well,
I haven't received any.
Okay,
time is precious here, folks. I don't know how much left.
about 30 seconds.
Well, you guys took plenty of it. We have about 45, please. Forgetting FAA or anything particular, airport was an example. Kim brought it up. It came to my mind, prompted me to ask you a question. But in general, are there areas not addressed in the use map? See there again, I mean, if it's not addressed, is it prohibited? Is the use table a special part of zoning where that particular default applies? Or is that across the board? Let's say that there were some use, let's say airports are not FAA regulated, just to use that concrete example. It's not in the use table. That means that airports would not be allowed. Am I understanding it correctly, Jane? That's all.
Thank you. I think your time's up, and what I will say is we made very broad areas in the use tables, like retail, service, et cetera, for that explicit reason. But if there's no one else speaking, I will ask our consultant, Nan. Nan, what do you have to say to that?
Existing uses would come under the non-conforming existing section. So if it was an existing business, whether it's an airport or something else that is not specifically identified on the use table, it would be able to continue under that section. But a new airport or a new whatever that wasn't mentioned on the table would not be allowed. Because yes, overall, something that's not on the use table is considered prohibited. But I also want to say that there are two built-in, I guess you would call it a relief valve. I don't know what other term to use it, specifically for that reason. And that is one, that there's through the Zoning Board of Appeals, a process to make your case to get a use variance. And the other one is that to petition the town board to amend the zoning. So, and that happens all the time. Use variances are harder to get because of the criteria that you have to meet, but zoning is not intended, at least in my opinion, it should not be intended to be static. Things change, new uses come up. You know, a few years ago, we never even heard of short-term rentals. So new things happen. And so the town board should be, if it adopts the zoning, it should be willing and able to have it be nimble to meet the needs of the community. So the short answer is, if under the current conditions, the airport would stay, new airports would not be allowed because they're not on the use table.
Okay,
Okay, well, thank
I
you.
got a question. Nan, you said petition. You said the person could petition the town board if
Yes.
something wasn't. Is that a legal way to do it? Is a petition, do they have to look at it? Because from
Well,
every.
yeah, I mean,
Petitions,
not a signed petition. I mean, someone comes to the town board and says, I'm asking you for zoning change. And the town board can consider that and go through the process to amend the law if it chooses that it's a use that it feels fits in with the purposes of the law, or it cannot. So I don't mean I don't mean the petition in the sense of, you know, you got to get 1,000 signatures on a piece of paper. It's you ask the town board, and that is the way zoning is that the town board can change the zoning anytime it likes. The planning board or the zoning board of appeals can ask the town board to make changes, and people can ask the town board and make their case to change the zoning and as conditions change or things come up. So that's what I meant by petition, not a survey kind of petition.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to go on with the meeting.
Can I just add just a couple words?
Sure.
Okay, because I wanted, because Jean, you said something that was really important. I think it got buried in here a little bit. I just wanted to let, you know, the folks in the audience there know, there are some catch-alls in the use table. You know, there's a term, one says offices, another says service businesses not otherwise listed. Another one is retail sales not otherwise listed. For exactly the reason that, of course, it's really difficult to specify every darn last little use. So I think it's important to realize that those options, you know, are available. Something can fit under one of those categories as the use table is currently written. And then I want to, you know, emphasize what Nan just said, which is that uses can be added, zone boundaries can be changed. This is not a set in stone sort of thing. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy and find to be clever yet. Petition is in like a legal proceeding, not a petition as in a piece of paper with signatures on it. But I do want to let you guys know, I mean, you know, we tried to write it in a way that would catch a lot of the possible uses. And if we miss something, this is a good time to bring something up to us because it's easy to insert in now before it's been passed. So if you have a use that you're thinking of doing, I would bring that forward to the zoning commission if it is not already in the use table.
Thank you. Could I have someone move the minutes of the July 26th meeting, please? Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Michelle. All in favor, say aye, please. Aye.
Aye.
Any nays? That's approved. Thank you. The town council report. Tim Murray, please.
Oh,
Oh,
I got it.
I guess your microphone has been shut off.
There. Thank you. Thank you for liberating. And all of that effort for me to say that since the last meeting, I have nothing to report.
Thank you, Tim. One of my favorite phrases at any meeting. My proposal was that we continue work on Article 6 and then we go back and review work on Article 5. Does that seem sane to people? Okay,
Sure, though I'm not, again, I mean, I have stuff on Article 5 is not going to be ready for a couple of weeks. So
Okay.
just giving you a heads up.
okay. So let's go on to Article 6. I'm gonna get it up on my screen. And
I don't have you on the meeting yet, Jean, do I?
I'm not in the meeting, but it will come up anyway because it's
Oh, I see.
a Google Doc.
Okay.
So. Sorry, this is taking me longer than it usually does.
Your time's up.
Yeah, you know, what happened is I left my mouse at home and I'm not I know, I'm very old and I need a mouse. It's very sad, really. It's how I am. Because most of the younger people.
My house, you want me to go get?
No, that's okay. I have those kind too. But, okay, so here we are on Article 5. I'm gonna go on to Article 6.
Gene, it's not, I don't believe it's being screen shared yet.
Right.
Ah, okay. Then I'm going to come into the meeting So I will do that instead. And I will screen share it. Okay, I'm here.
Okay,
Thank you, folks, for your time.
Thank you.
good night.
I'll be back, Gene, just so you don't feel bad.
Is that a warning?
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Tim.
Good night, Ken.
Okay, I'm here and I'm going to now share my screen. And with that, I'm going to do. Google. I don't know if I'm gonna share it. I seem to be having a hard time sharing it.
Do you want me to put it up? I have it up.
I do. That would be great. You put it up because I seem to be having a hard time getting it there.
Okay, let me,
You should be able to, man.
is it up?
Yep.
Great. And
Yeah, so here we go.
here it is. And you're on page what?
This one looks like it's
Yeah.
page 26.
Okay.
It was 6.5.2.
Yep, accessory dwelling and units.
Okay. So, shall I lead us through this? This was accessory dwellings and freestanding dwellings. We've taken off that last little bit. That last little sentence. And
What's the freestanding accessory dwelling?
it's like a mother-in-law apartment out back.
But freestanding means it's just a separate building?
Yes,
Yes.
yeah.
Why don't we say separate instead of freestanding?
Do people have a problem with freestanding, the separate work?
Just sounds kind of weird.
I don't have any problems with freestanding. Bruce, why don't you like freestanding?
Just sounds. I don't know, it just sounds weird, freestanding. Because the dwelling is freestanding, all dwelling, and doesn't matter, I'm
Okay.
fine with it.
Okay,
It just sounds funny.
okay.
I mean, other
I
possible
mean,
phrases would be unattached or non-attached.
Yeah, I was just gonna say it could be attached or detached is other terms that we use.
Right.
Okay, in all cases, only one accessory apartment within an existing structure or one freestanding accessory dwelling shall be allowed per lot, but not both. That
So this was a
the-
note that, you know, a lot of communities allow either a detached, you know, you can put an accessory dwelling in a garage or a barn, or convert your, you know, your back porch into a studio apartment, but not both. Some communities allow both. Some communities allow either, but you can only have one. So there's a policy decision there in terms of what do you know, what is the policy that you want related to accessory dwellings?
Anyone, how do people feel about this? Do you think we should allow both? Or merely one?
I have a question. So why wouldn't you allow both? What's the reason for just having one or the other?
Well, if you allow both, so that means you have a house, a single family dwelling, and you might have an apartment in the house, and you might have an accessory dwelling in a garage or a barn or in some other structure. So that gives you, it's just more density. That's all. It's in some, some communities have issues with, there's a bias, there's a long-standing bias in zoning against accessory dwelling units. I think that's changed over the last couple of years, but it's kind of a holdover from kind of old zoning. It really gets at, it really is a density issue. And you got to make sure that, of course, you have enough water, you have septic systems that handle whatever's on site. Parking for 3, so it's basically, you could potentially have 3 different families living on the parcel. It may not be an issue for you, but that's, I'd say typically zoning allows for one or the other, but there's certainly nothing wrong with allowing either and at the same time. So that's why this was flagged to, for you to discuss.
Go ahead, Susan.
Bill?
So, I'm musing on this. I'm not really sure. I'm tempted to allow both, on the assumption that the health department will be looking at the sewage. I mean, we don't necessarily have anyone looking at the water supply issue for that case. I'm a little concerned about the health department. We'll get to this when we get to the multifamily units later, because again, I know there is one 8-unit apartment on 0.4 acres in Brooktondale, and I don't know how that exists, but maybe they have a very sophisticated sewage treatment plan, or maybe the health department didn't look at it. So I raise that as a cautionary flag. Can we really trust the health department to make sure the sewage systems are adequate? I just don't have an experience. I'm tempted to allow it because basically compact, denser housing is what will allow more open space elsewhere. And so as long as we feel that the water supply and water disposal issues can be handled in some way, I'm tempted to allow both. But Nan has raised an important question about parking, because that does happen. I mean, I know, when I was living in College Town and there were 4 of us grad students, I mean, trying to find space for the cars was always an issue, right? And so I didn't want that to happen in Slaterville or Brooktondale. So that's why I'm wishy-washy on this. If someone can think of a great solution to the parking issue, then I'll feel better.
Let's see, I think I see Michelle's hand up again, and Barb's. Barb, again?
Michelle, yeah.
Barb and then Michelle.
Yeah, thank you. I'd like to speak in favor of allowing both, but adding language either to number 3 or to another item that we would add that would say that this is contingent upon meeting, something to the effect of this being contingent upon meeting the requirements of the health department and providing at least one parking space per dwelling on the property.
So we do have, just to point out, we do have later on just coming up about parking. And we also have an item here about the health department with water and sanitary systems. So we could, those are already kind of baked into the standards.
Yeah, I guess I'd just like to make sure that that's clear, that it applies to accessory units as well. So either that language here or in the other section that you're referring to, Nan.
It is
this
under
is all
A.
under accessory dwellings.
Yeah, so that's fine. And so that's an interesting question, though. So let's say someone has their house and they have an accessory unit in the house and they convert their garage to an apartment. They now have to have 6 parking places, according to this. Is that correct, Nan?
Yeah, that's just to speak up here, that's an issue that I've raised, that I'm not in favor of two spaces being required per dwelling unit.
So you're saying 1, I think.
One.
Just let Michelle
yes.
speak. Sorry, Michelle, I jumped on your turn.
No, that's okay. I basically, I agree with everything Barb said. I don't have any problems with having, allowing both, but there has to be some way that the health department gets involved to make sure that, it's not a health risk. As far as the water, it seems like, if your well's not big enough to support that, then that's going to really just going to be a personal issue for you, right? Like, we don't really care. But
If you're renting the county. If
Sorry,
it's, if it's family, no one cares. If it's, if it's a rental, the county would care.
okay, so however that goes, I just know, I guess in the history of my own property, apparently that came up. They built another building and the well couldn't handle it and it turned into a big deal. Involved burning a house down or something, I think. But anyway, so, or knocking it down, they bulldozed it down, that's right. Anyway, that was between them. So,
So
Anyway.
where I think that might be different is, let's say a whole bunch of residences in Sayreville Springs or Brookendale, particularly Brookendale, because Sayreville Springs is in the gravel aquifer, did this, and suddenly there were 3 residences on all these parcels. That could affect the water table for everybody, not just the landowner of that particular parcel. So I think that's where it gets into something a little dicier. In terms of the parking, yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's complex language like, 2 spaces for the main dwelling and 1 additional space for each accessory unit, something like that. Because, I don't know. That's my toss out.
Well, I guess the question, let's start with number 3. Would we like to have number 3 say, an accessory apartment within an existing structure and a freestanding shall be allowed per lot, and get rid of per both? I'm hearing general agreement on that.
Yeah, I agree with that.
So I'm gonna do this.
So
I would
now
take
that-
out in all cases, and just say, start with 1 accessory apartment within an existing structure and 1 freestanding accessory dwelling shall be allowed per lot. I mean, that's what I heard you all say.
Right. So Jean, just as a record keeping thing, should you be in suggesting mode or editing mode? I don't know how we want to do this going forward. Last time we did suggestions.
Yeah, I'll do suggesting now and see if that works better.
So you have to undo everything first, though.
I'll make a note of it. I can make the change back.
I don't see how you make the change back, since this is, unless I get,
I have
Why wouldn't you want to edit it? I mean,
yeah, that's the question. I'm really raising it. In general, we've been doing suggestions so we could sort of see what was changed, but maybe if the decision's made tonight, it's okay to get rid of it.
I'm okay with getting rid of it, but I actually have a printed out copy at home, so I can go back and put it in if I need to.
Well, what does the zoning commission want? Should we just go ahead and edit it the way we want it tonight?
Yeah, let's do that. I think that makes sense.
yeah, I'm in favor of that. I get confused with all these, the previous things left in and but that's just me.
Okay, I will make this look correct. And then let's go on and see where we find the parking and the water part. So that's
6.
6. Parking shall be a minimum of 2 spaces, and what I'm hearing Barbara saying is perhaps 1 per dwelling unit on site.
Or Bill's suggestion of 2 for the main residence and then 1 per accessory structure.
What do you think, Nan?
I think people complain about not having enough parking all the time, but believe me, I understand why you don't want to have a lot of parking spots. I have no problem if you want to do 2 for the main dwelling and 1 per accessory unit. I think you'll probably get complaints, but I think that's reason. I think it's, we have to try and wean ourselves from so many cars.
Right.
Right.
So that would be parking shall be a minimum of 2 spaces per the main dwelling unit on site and 1 per accessory unit and does not need to be paved. Okay.
Yeah, I would say parking shall be, I would add parking shall be a minimum of 2 spaces for the call it the primary dwelling, because that's kind of the word that we use other places.
Okay.
Sounds good to me, because how many primary dwellings does anybody know about where there isn't 2 cars?
Yeah, not many. Okay, that sounds good. Then it says the Tompkins County Department of Health approved water supplies and sanitary systems shall be required prior to granting of any building permit for an accessory apartment. Such systems may be connected or existing or upgraded water supply and sanitary may be separate facilities. If a separate system is necessary, all of their standards, setbacks, and requirements of this law and of the County Department of Health shall be met. So it's basically leaving it up to the Department of Health to do that and to do it before you grant a
I guess.
Yeah.
building permit, right?
Right.
And so,
Sorry, I didn't mean to jump ahead.
Yeah.
I just wanted to go back to 4 and 5 before we moved off of this subject.
good idea. So 4 and 5 is conversions of a single family residence to a 2 is a permitted use in all zoning districts where such conversion is allowed for the New York State Building Code, but shall require a building permit, and that should have a period after it.
Well, that's one. So I don't know who, it might have been from the earlier December edits. But the shall require a building permit for whatever reason was crossed off at some point. And I just question in retrospect, since we're talking about accessory dwellings, I'm just wondering whether this one is really needed. It's really not. When you split a single family house into 2, it's not really an accessory dwelling, because an accessory dwelling by definition is kind of secondary and subordinate to the primary. So this really, number 4 doesn't even really fit in here in retrospect.
I agree with that. Does
Okay,
not
so
fit.
you're suggesting taking out number 4.
Yes.
Okay, and I am doing that. Okay,
And then likewise with number 5, it's an interesting question. I mean, do we need to even say that? If we strike that, is
it's really a
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an important concept, but I don't think it belongs in this section.
right? It should be more in the multifamily housing unit or
Right.
section or something.
Right. I agree.
So we're taking that out.
So can we remember to move it to that section?
I'm gonna.
Yeah,
make
I'm making a note in my Word document, but we can make a note in the Google Doc too.
Okay, I will put that here. Okay. I don't know why it's crossed out, but it is, but I have a note, so I will go back and fix that. Okay, so we fixed the parking. We're happy, I think, with number 7 about the Tompkins County Department of Health. Are we happy, or do we?
Well, I'm grudgingly happy. I mean, I think what falls through the cracks is whether we start to affect the water table, but I don't see any real way to do that. I mean, for larger developments, there's testing, et cetera, that happens. And just when it happens house by house, there's just no way to say, oh, you're the straw that broke the camel's back. So I think we leave it. But I just have to, I'm playing the rest of the game under protest.
Okay. Okay, number 8, when an existing single-family dwelling is altered to accommodate an accessory apartment, all construction associated with adaptation of the existing structure shall be performed in a manner that retains and enhances the character of the structure.
Could this be moved up? I can't see number 8. We only.
Oh,
see-
sorry. I'm sorry.
Can you enlarge it too?
The design and construction of the adaptation of the accessory structure shall further be compatible with the parent structure on the premises and with the overall character of the thing. You're saying, Bruce, to add something about that it could be all, that when it says altered, you're afraid that it might not include making it larger? I think altered includes that. Yeah.
It's basically, the thought is that when you We've all seen, you know, structures that have had apartments or other things built onto them and they're, you know, not at all like the original structure or, you know, other buildings built on a parcel for an apartment that also doesn't fit in. You know, this gets back, if Ernie were here, I'm sure he would be saying this is aesthetic zoning. This is what it is. It's really trying to get at the aesthetic character so that you have accessory dwellings that look like they fit into both what's there and, you know, in the neighborhood.
Right.
Yeah, that's where, I'm not sure we need and enhances. That retains the character of the structure.
Right, I would agree with that.
So shall we remove and enhances?
Yeah,
Okay. I'm deleting that. Going to go into editing mode. And that will do that. Okay.
so,
Okay. Okay, then we go on to B, other accessory buildings or units. Accessory buildings shall not exceed the height, or setback regulations. Setbacks are the same, and then that's it for that section. And then we go on
Can
to, and that,
Can I go back just 1 second
sure, where are you going
to the last sentence on that?
And the overall character of the neighborhood?
Yeah, the premises with the overall character of the neighborhood.
And what would you like
Don't
to
we
do?
just say that further be compatible with the parent structure on the premises?
How do people feel about this last clause and the overall character of the neighborhood?
I mean, because if you do that, you are doing it because you're making them stay with the character of the area, so you're just adding the candy to the thing here, if you ask me.
Okay, so you're wanting to get rid of this, is what you're saying. How do
Yeah.
people feel about that?
Yeah, I agree with that. I would modify the first sentence to say design and construction associated with adaptation, blah, 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 and then take out the second sentence, which is largely repetitive with the first.
Right.
So you would do this. Okay,
If others agree with that.
mostly, what was the phrasing in there? I mean, retains the character of the structure. What did it say in the sentence we took out?
It said the design and construction of the adaptation of the accessory structure shall further be compatible with the parent structure on the premises and with the overall character of the neighborhood.
Okay, yeah, so, yeah, I'm just trying to say that it's the compatible with the parent structure phrase I was debating putting in here rather than retains the character. Okay, this is fine.
okay,
Yeah, I agree. I think it's okay.
okay, let's go on to B, other accessory uses or buildings or uses. So accessory.
And I'm just says that the first three are saying these laws have to be paid attention to. I think we can say, okay, unless someone has an objection to that. Again, I'm just trying to save us a little time from reading all the words on the page.
Yeah. Okay, I've lost my page. What page are we on?
Just a comment, about where local laws are mentioned. One of the earlier discussions that we've had throughout this is to put in the title of the local law when it's referred to, so that it's clear, like, you know, local law to relate
Okay.
to whatever.
Makes sense.
All right, so just add some note, Gene, that to add the
Yep.
title.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so that's the natural gas and petroleum and siting and communication cables and adult uses. And then solar siting.
So I had a note there, which basically says, one thing, there's an error here because it says that medium and large are allowed only in the ag and rural, but that's not true because we also add the commercial district. And
Right.
to avoid that kind of issue, sorry, we're under solar,
Right, solar siting.
right?
Nan-
So,
right.
so Nan, what I'm wondering about is there not just some way to say, I mean, of course, the use table governs, right? But is there not a way simply here to say, check the use table, as opposed to trying to say again here what the districts are, so we avoid a slip up, like forgetting to mention a district?
Yes, I think it should be, yeah, we could just say all procedures and requirements of local law 3, we'll put the name of it in. or any subsequent amendments shall be met. Solar, and say something like, I don't know, I'm not thinking of the exact
Yeah.
word, but just basically, you know, like, solar facilities shall be allowed as per the use table.
Okay, that, yeah, so something, because, yeah,
Like
because
solar,
that way, if you change the use table in the future, you don't go back and remember to change this line down here.
Right,
that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
as per the use table in article, whatever, section, whatever.
Yeah, so then you're saying then the number 1 and 2 would come out because we
Yeah,
don't need that.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
If other folks agree, that's my proposal.
I think that's a great proposal. So I'm gonna do that. Ta-da.
And now with the battery section, which is the next clause we're getting to, I think we actually allow them in all districts, but the difference is that the larger ones go through site plan review. And again, maybe there's no reason to say anything one way or the other about that.
Is that in the battery law though?
No, the battery law doesn't say that because again, it was written before there was zoning. So we had no use table. no
Okay, so I
nothing.
think we need to add the same sentence in here is that batteries shall be as, you know, allowed as per the use table.
Okay, and I think it all work out. I mean, the wrinkle is that because we didn't have all this written up, essentially the battery law creates its own site plan review list. It says the procedure is what's in site plan law, but the things to pay attention to aren't what's in site plan law, they're what's in the battery law. And
Okay,
I hope that still works somehow, you know, legally.
yeah, that happens all the time. That, I mean, it just makes it, you know, you got to look at both of them. They're not all in one place. So that should not an issue.
Okay.
And that's why we didn't repeat any of these laws in here.
Right. Okay, and then it says the subdivision law, all procedures, requirements, blah, 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 shall be met whenever a subdivision is proposed in any zoning district as per 6.5.12 of this local law. All major subdivisions shall be designed as a conservation subdivision. So we come up to the conservation subdivision issue, and also the fact that we probably are going to change some things in that subdivision law as we included in here, right?
Well,
And you
whatever-
know, when this was first written, I think what I was trying to do was simply refer to all of the other land use related laws that the town has, like the, you know, the solar, the adult uses and so forth. So I think I originally had put in the 5.8 so that everyone was aware there was a subdivision law and it had to be followed. I think that I have no problem with that being in there. I know Ernie had a suggestion that this doesn't add anything new, but none of the other ones add anything new either. They simply refer as a reminder. So I don't have a problem with reiterating it. I think the one change is whether you are going to require major subdivisions to be designed as a conservation subdivision.
Yeah, we have not decided that.
Yeah, so
Well-
let's, well, go ahead, Bill.
Well, so, you know, I think Michelle had a question here and I had a comment in this basically saying, I think we need to discuss, maybe it's today, maybe it's next meeting, I don't know. The possibility of saying in a hamlet district, you can do either a traditional neighborhood design or you can do a conservation subdivision. And in the ag rural, you have to do a conservation subdivision. I mean, that's where I'm basically leaning towards, but I'm not fully decided. It's possible Bruce and Ernie are going to argue we never have conservation subdivisions anywhere, but I'm wondering if we can take this sentence out here or if it needs to be here. I don't know where you say that part. If that's best put here, or is that best put in the subdivision law? Is that best put under multifamily developments? I don't know where that sentence goes that specifies.
Yeah,
options.
I think you raise a really good point, and I would I'm not sure this is the right place for it, but we had a whole section on conservation subdivisions that had a section on applicability. And so I would add it, I would make sure whatever rule you set, if you want to say, yeah, in the ag rural district, they have to be a conservation subdivision, but in the hamlet, they don't, that would be, I would think, the place to put it. I myself have no problem with reiterating things just to make sure everybody sees it, but you know, I have no problem with it being here, but you could certainly, I think, need to make that decision, and then we need to at least change the applicability section of the conservation subdivision chapter.
I think the reality is we are going to change things in our suggestion in what we pass along to the town board in all likelihood about the subdivision. So I think we're gonna have to change this sentence at some point. Because it's not gonna be the same law. Or we're not gonna suggest it's the same law, right?
Well, I don't know if you've decided that yet, have you?
Right.
Well,
No.
that's what we've talked about so far, but I think it's likely.
Well, so you're talking about the first sentence, basically, Gene, right? Which is, you know, that subdivision law, we may recommend some changes to that. But there's this other overarching question, which is really in the zoning, which is conservation subdivision design versus not conservation subdivision design. I think we make that choice.
Right,
I think it would be good to make that choice at a day when certainly Ernie is here. I think he has strong feelings about it. Preferably a day when all of us are present, because it's a key decision to make.
and I would like Nan to show us some conservation subdivision, so people have a stronger understanding of that. So let's try to do that at the next meeting. And Nan said she has some, you know, pictorial things she can show us about that, which I think makes a lot of sense.
Could not find my conservation subdivision
Michelle,
section.
Michelle, please
Um,
speak.
I think I might be saying the same thing as Bruce was just getting ready to say. At what point does something get kicked up to where it would have to be a conservation subdivision? How many units?
The way a major subdivision is 5 or more.
Okay,
5 or more, you know, sub 5 acre within a 3-year period to get all the bells and whistles in there. But yeah.
But Gene, I agree that your subdivision law that's currently on the books that the first sentence of applies to. I'm strongly recommending that the town look at how that's laid out in what the policies in that are. But the fact is that you have that law, it's on the books, and this was simply
Okay,
referring to it. If you want to take out the second sentence and then we address the applicability of the conservation subdivision when everyone is present, we can certainly do that.
I think that's what we should do, and we should do that at the next
Okay.
meeting.
All right, and frankly, I'm in favor of keeping that last sentence in, but amending it to whatever we decide. As per Nan, no harm in duplicating certain things, because if someone wants to read about a subdivision, they'll go there. But I think Ernie, who's into brevity, is going to argue otherwise. So that's just my suggestion. I think we definitely need to deal with that question too, when all of us are present. That is whether that sentence stays or not.
Okay.
Yeah, I
So-
don't like it myself.
Okay, we'll figure that out when we figure out what we're doing with the conservation subdivision. So let's go on to the dump, trash, rubbish, garbage. It just says all procedures of local law 1, promote attractiveness of property shall be met. Farm worker housing.
Yeah, Bruce had a question on that.
Bruce, what's your question?
Yeah, this was that Bruce, you had a question or a comment about this in the December version.
Not sure how many fixtures.
So generally, we allow farms to have whatever housing they need for their employees, and it doesn't count towards the density on the parcel. I mean, that's, again, you don't have to do it that way, but that's the general way it's done.
So one question I have, while Bruce gathers his thoughts, is do we have much of this at all in Caroline? Is it essentially a non-issue because it's just not much of a thing?
I think currently we don't have much of it. In fact, I'm not sure if we have any. Because we have very few cows being, most farm worker housing seems to come with cow operations, dairy.
It'd be up in Cayuga County.
And yeah, or actually even Lansing has big dairy farms. Whereas one of my friends who owns one of them says, he says, I deal in manure management. That's what he does. But or crop farms, and we don't have a lot of crop farms. But that's not to say we might not in the future. But I think there's no reason to me that farm worker housing would count towards the allowable residential density on a parcel. It's about the operation of the business essentially. So I don't have any problem with this at all.
I don't either, but maybe Bruce, what do you want to say?
You know, it kind of pertains to all businesses have the same deal. Farm worker housing is what we're talking about. It just seems kind of funny that it would be.
Well, most businesses don't have workers living on property.
And also this is part of the New York State Ag District Law. So farm worker housing has a state definition and it has guidelines from the state for farms. So it's a thing that the state has already long established policy. And so I think in a rural community that has farms, given that it's already carved out in in many ways through the Ag Districts Law. That's why it's in here.
That's fine. All manufactured housing, is that like include trailers, or just does that mean double wide?
Yes, that's what that is.
Double wide trailers,
Okay,
modular stick built, yeah.
okay.
Okay, so we're happy with this farm working there, and we can get rid of that coloring in it. Okay, so we're on to 6.5.11 multifamily developments. All multifamily development shall require a site plan review and special use permit pursuant to Articles 7 and 8 of this zoning law, and shall have a lot layout established pursuant to conservation subdivision. So this is again, if we come to conservation subdivision, we'll have to do something about that. You just want to note that it's there.
Later.
So I'm going to put a green line on it. Okay.
And just briefly to reiterate though, I don't have a problem with what it says there, but Ernie raised the issue last time about whether indeed multifamily housing needs to have a special use permit or not. And it's part responding to some pushback from one particular developer in town. And Nan, I think, has argued several times that, yeah, these really are commercial facilities and businesses, and so should be regulated as such. And I'm of that view, but Ernie's not here to argue his side. But I will also say what I said at that meeting, which is that special use permits aren't supposed to be like a way you prevent something from happening. They're a way to put certain conditions on a use so it doesn't impact the neighborhood. And we should not look at multifamily housing as something we don't want, and that we're trying to make it hard by making a special use permit for it.
I agree with you, and I will note that in the minutes of tonight's meeting.
Thank you.
And that kind of goes along with B. All structures containing multifamily units shall meet design standards, which we went over last week or whenever our last meeting was. And that's for the same reason, that they are commercial entities. And so that's why that's in there. But Ernie objected to that because again, he feels that it's an aesthetic zoning issue.
We struck C, right? We took C out.
We did strike C.
Right.
So, but B is still there, and we struck a lot of things under the design standards so far, so. Okay, so let's go on to D. So D is,
I have a question.
sorry, didn't see your hand.
Yeah. To the multifamily houses, and I'm sorry if I should maybe know this, but do they have to adhere to the same sizes as other commercial buildings?
No. I
I'm
don't
saying?
think-
Oh,
Yeah, I think it's a good, that's a good question. They don't, but then the fact that you brought that question up might mean we should clarify that in the use table. That though the commercial, the square footage requirements that you had in the dimensions table were for non-residential commercial uses.
Okay, great, because I've had the same question, so thank you for asking, Michelle.
I am going to make a note here, and I bet Nan is doing the same.
Yep.
We Make sure that the
Well-
use table is clear about that.
I guess my other question is why not?
I think, I guess I think because of what the use is. I mean, a commercial building that's for selling tractor parts doesn't need some of the things that residential buildings need. So, and you could have, I mean, someone could decide that they wanted to try to build a senior housing multifamily building, like something like Fountain Manor, except larger. Which probably, and nobody, I think, would object to wildly, since senior housing is gonna be it's like a thing that is gonna be needed. And it has a different look and a purpose and place. So I think that's the reason. What does anybody else think?
Yeah, I would just add that I think you're right. I mean, I think Michelle has a good point. Typically residential, those things are controlled by density, so the number of units per building and the number of units on the whole parcel. Many communities say, well, you can't have more than 4 or 6 units in any given building, so it controls the scale of the building. So kind of like the Boyceville cottages. So you have many smaller units rather than one big giant apartment building. So I think that they're generally controlled by the number of units you allow on the parcel rather than the square footage of the building. But that's not to say that you couldn't, if you wanted to, you could say, you can't have a multifamily building bigger than whatever square feet you feel you want to say. You could say that if you wanted to.
Well, I'm not proposing that, but I will say, I think we should leave in the design standards. I don't have problems with the design standard section, so.
So in B, and that's there. There
Yeah.
are
Right.
design standards of section, in 6.1.
Ernie's not here, so that's what happened.
Okay,
So
Well, they will at least try to keep it from being an institutional look, right? I mean, that's the benefit of those design standards.
Right.
exactly. Speaking of which, I wanted to tell you that I happened to be up in, where Montezuma is. What county would that be in?
Seneca.
Seneca? I think it's-
Cayuga. Yeah, maybe
And-
Seneca that day.
which is an extremely rural county, and they, as I entered the towns, I was noticing, they all said they had zoning, and it was interesting as I passed a Family Dollar that did not look like all other Family Dollars. I would not say it was wildly attractive, but it had like a facade, it's as if you were in an old Western town where there was that facade that stuck up in the front, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It also had things on the side. It was just different looking. It's the only time I've ever seen a Family Dollar that looked entirely different. It was,
yeah,
I just
went to
noticed it.
Maine a couple days ago and there was a Dunkin' Donuts on the way that was completely, I would say, not conventional. It was completely different.
Uh-huh.
It was like contemporary.
Huh.
It was square and
Yeah,
cute and was attractive.
yeah. It was
That's
just-
because most likely the zoning forced them to be that way.
Yeah, I just noticed that as I went through, because it's in general, an extremely rural, it's, as one of my friends would say, it's your rich farmers. Who grew up on a farm, and that means,
Shopping at the Dollar General.
that means that there was, really good land and lots of horses, which is also a sign of rich farmers when you have a lot of horses.
So we know they can do it.
It was, it was just it was fascinating for me to see, because I had never really seen one before. Okay, so I think we are on to D, maximum building size and density, is that right?
Yep.
Yep.
That's good.
Barbara had a comment, and we had,
She's raised her hand.
and Barbara has her hand up.
Yeah, this is a section that I have concerns about, because I think if we go with just using the standard residential density, that we will be putting inappropriate constraints on multifamily housing, particularly multifamily housing that includes many units, and that's designed to be affordable housing. So for example, Fountain Manor is affordable senior housing and disabled people housing, and it has income requirements, and it has 24 units. So it has 24 single person units within the structure, as I understand it. And to me, that's the kind of facility, assuming it would meet all health department, water and sewage requirements, that the town of Caroline should be providing for into the future. So I have a concern. I haven't gone through and edited each of the lines of this section, but I wanted to express that as a theme that I'm concerned with. And so, when I hear things about, a multifamily housing building should be limited to 4 units, if those are 4 single person units, that's not a large structure, and it doesn't accommodate a lot of people, and the cost of building several of those structures on the parcel would be much more than building one single structure that would provide a larger number of single person units within that one single structure footprint. So that's my concern here, is that we be aware of that and do what we can to encourage particularly affordable, below market rate housing, multifamily housing in the town.
Bill, I see your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. So, somewhat seconding, Barb, I think we need to look at this section pretty carefully. And I had sent out, so we have Boyceville Cottages, we have Fountain Manor, and then we have a bunch of other apartments in town. And pretty much all those other apartments are converted houses. I mean, maybe one of them isn't. I haven't looked at each one, but the ones I know about, it's either a barn or a house that's been converted. And I just did a tally now. So of the 12 that aren't Fountain Manor and Boyceville, 6 have more than 4 units, and 6 have 4 or fewer units. So to Barb's point, that's sort of the market saying this is what we need to do, to make things work. But the other underlying point is that, I think we need to allow a greater density for multifamily housing than the underlying zoning district. In part because, remember, in any of the hamlets, we set the minimum lot size to be sort of the median or average lot size. So
Right.
that means any residence like that, or on a smaller lot, or even a little bit bigger lot, can't actually ever be converted into apartments, because by definition, it's already got one dwelling and we've set the lot size to be that. So that means that there's a relatively small number of properties suitable for converting to apartments. That may be too big a constraint on the residents of Caroline. So I think we should allow a higher density for multifamily housing. How high is what I think we need to sort of work out. Barb has also suggested an extra boost for affordable housing, which I think is a great idea. But I might do one bump up just for any multifamily housing, and a second bump up if you're allowing doing below market rates. So that's my basic.
I very much agree. I think that we should go up to at least 8 units per a structure. And
But, well, but density is not by per structure, it's by,
Right,
by
right.
acre. So you would need to figure out, you know, is it 2 per acre, 4 per acre, or whatever number you decide on?
Yeah, there's two different issues going on here. One is density and one is dwellings per structure.
right, but I think that there is a need for apartments. And I think the Boyce Hill cottages, you know, are one of those answers, but I don't think I mean, clearly, there's 120 units there. It's something that people wanted. You know, that's 120 dwelling units there. So it's clearly a need.
Actually 140, but
There you are.
yeah,
I lost count as I was driving through.
Yeah.
But there, and the other places that I think of are like up on Burns Road. There's a barn that's been converted, and on 79. And a barn is a very typical thing to convert because you can easily get 4 dwelling units into a barn. But I think if people were thinking about building something, there are a number of recently built things in the town of Dryden that are, they're structures that usually, I'm trying to remember the name of the road, but I can't. It's you know where the Christian school is on Route 13? Do you know what I mean? That Christian school? You know, the house that has all the insane number of animals outside, stuffed animals like for Christmas and every other holiday known to mankind?
yes.
That, okay, everyone knows that place.
Next to the brewery?
Yes, near the brewery. If you went kind of in back of that, a couple of lots over in the back, there's roads that pass through there. And in that area, there's actually a lot of apartments, and most of them are 8 units. And they're attractive and easily built, I think, not very complicated. Yeah, and they're on 2 floors, and they seem to work. So I think that that's a reasonable size house that you could, you know, or structure that could be built. The question is, how do you do it and think about the number of, and I think you could incentivize this. You could say, for instance, if they're affordable, you get a bump up in terms of what you can build on a piece of acreage. So thinking about our somebody has to give me some numbers because I'm not good at working this out on the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm not.
Okay, here's my motion. That we allow up to 8 units in a structure. That could be 6, but let's propose 8. That in general, the multifamily housing can be double the basic zoning district density. And if it offers affordable housing, it can go up to 3 times the density of the underlying district. Those are totally off the top of my head. Other than the 8 units, I mean, again, a lot of things in town are 6 to 8 units. You know, half of the things that have been converted are 6 to 8. So there's some market suggestion that 6 to 8 is not a bad number.
Right.
I mean, it could be 6 rather than 8, but
So you could have 4 2-unit buildings?
You can have 1 8.
sure.
You could have 1 8, you could have 4 2-unit buildings. Okay, I'm just asking because.
Yeah,
Well, a 2-unit building wouldn't necessarily by itself be
it wouldn't be multifamily.
a multifamily, but if you had multiple structures that have 2 units on it, then it would be a multifamily development, yes.
I like that idea, and I think that we should figure out how to write that down. What
So
do
I just want to add, I mean, I like that idea too. I just want to add that when you say that if they're affordable housing, that you get triple the density, then we just have to make sure that we identify how you know it's affordable housing. And those are usually deed restricted, below market rate for,
Yes.
30 or 40 or 50 years. Some communities are saying 50 years. So that would have to be written that way.
Yes.
I'm good with that. I think Barb was sort of suggesting that in her notes.
Yeah, Yeah, it's generally, I have one of my friends runs INHS. I can ask her what the normal thing is here. So let me do that.
And I assume that, again, there must be similar language somewhere in here about, health department sign off on things and stuff like that. And I think
Yes, it's a little further down, number 4, the review board shall ensure that any proposed density will meet all New York State Board of Health requirements.
okay, and I think this is the one that does have maybe the possible water testing. I guess that's under site plan, not here. Is there any water supply testing requirement here?
I don't believe so.
Okay, I think that comes under site plan. I'm not sure under something there.
Well, when they say wastewater treatment systems, they would have had to test to know whether you needed a treatment system.
Well, I think what Bill was getting at was like, after so many units, you have to test to make sure there's enough capacity and that you don't adversely affect neighboring wells. Is that what you
Yes,
meant, Bill?
I'm getting at water supply. In terms of the waste disposal, I mean, they just call them on-site waste treatment systems or whatever. So that's why I was using that. Now, I didn't, that could be a leach field, versus it doesn't mean some fancy system, though it might if there's enough density.
Right.
Do you want to add like a general catch-all, like the planning board may require well pump test to ensure water capacity?
I personally would. What do other folks think?
I agree. That can be added to number 4, but it would be the review board, not the planning board.
Oh, sorry.
All right.
Sorry. Yes, you're right.
Yeah, I agree with that as
Because
well.
God knows I don't want to be doing that.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Because the last thing you want is someone to invest a lot of money in building something and then there's not enough water. That's not a good thing.
Yeah,
And they get
and
into
and
what?
not impact the neighbors. I mean,
Right.
people keep asking, for me, what's in zoning? One of the big things is that things that we do don't impact our neighbors, right? I mean, it's fine if I screw myself, but that's to me, one of the core tenets of zoning that I'm looking for is how do we make sure that what the actions that someone is taking, including me, don't negatively impact people living near me.
Yep.
So we're gonna put a standard.
Yeah, so I think what we're asking Dan to write a standard about this 8 units, double density, affordability 3 times. I'll get some wording from my friend at INHS about what people standardly use in this area so that we are not standing out alone. We're not egregious, and we will, and I'll get that to Nan this week about what's affordable. I mean.
Yes, and I will write those up for you.
Great, and we will also add into some of these other things about, like in number 4 here under D, something about the water capacity.
Yes, got it.
Okay, great. Good.
So,
that was-
but before we move on, in general, is everyone kind of okay with what Bill suggested, the 8 units, the double for multifamily and triple if it's affordable?
Yes,
Yeah,
Okay.
I agree. I'm fine
Okay.
with that.
I think it's a good thing, and I think it's needed. So we'll see.
I guess I'd have to look at what the real numbers were.
Well, I think what Bill sent us gave us a sense of what there were already going on in the town. But as I said, I think the fact that the 140 units at Boyceville, I mean, I went through there to collect signatures on petitions, and it was rare that I came across an apartment that was empty. It was very rare. I think I probably hit something like more than 100 apartments, and I think I came across 4 that were empty, which is pretty darn good, So they're clearly, and those are not inexpensive, those apartments at all. Those are, I think the least expensive are about 1,500 a month. And they go up from there. So,
And to put this in context, we had this discussion a while back, like, could Boyceville be done now under our zoning law? And with this change, essentially, it just about could be. I mean, again, my estimate is that it could have, would have qualified for 60 units at the normal density for that hamlet.
right,
I'm estimating how much, and then if you double that, that's 120. So You know, in other words, a development like that, yes, could happen if we make this change.
Right. And
I'm not sure I want too many more of them, but hey, I'm glad it's there.
yeah, it's interesting. I had a question for Barb about the 400 square feet per unit, because I think that you had looked at something and we changed it to 400, but I don't remember why. Do you?
Tiny houses, maybe?
Yeah, because I changed it, because 400 square feet is the New York State, defines tiny houses at no smaller than 400 square feet. And so I was thinking that if you wanted to have tiny houses as part of your multifamily,
Right.
you know, toolbox, that you didn't want, that 600 would be too small, too big,
Okay.
that would limit you.
Okay, that's fine. I lived in a 10 by 50 mobile home at one point in my life, and may I never go back there. It was small. It was very small.
You didn't have a density bonus.
I did not have a density. There was, well, we had we did. We had if you opened the back door, we had a thing that was like 4 by 8, kind of a platform you could stand on, which is where you had to go to dry yourself because there was no room in the bathroom. Luckily, we had a long driveway, so. Okay, well, I feel very good about that. Thanks, everyone. That was a good discussion. So we're going on to 6, I think, which is open design and layout standards. The open space shall be pursuant to the New York State Building Code, and I think we talked the last time about why, and that's so that emergency vehicles can get in.
Yeah.
2 parking spots per unit shall be provided. Is that, do we still want that 2 sparking spots? That was a spoonerism. 1 parking spot feeling.
Am I recognized?
Yeah. Yeah, Barb, go ahead. I want to hear you.
Yes, I appreciate the conversation that we had earlier. But I am concerned about, particularly in multi-unit housing, where some of the multi-units may not be 2-person or more units. They may be single-person units. And even in a 2-person unit, I'm just concerned with the philosophy of requiring 2 parking spots per unit, because what that's doing is encouraging people to have cars.
Right.
And if it's made a bit more difficult to have a car, that's not a bad thing in my view, in terms of cutting down on the usage of cars. And there has been more interest in using, bus system and other modes of transportation. So I'm concerned about using up land to encourage people to drive by owning 2 cars per dwelling unit.
I am perfectly content with putting 1 in. What other people think?
I have a
I'm fine with
question.
them.
Yeah.
So I assume that the developer could put in more parking, or is this restricting them to the number of parking spaces? Is this is this an upper bound, lower bound, or a must equal?
This says maximum under the title, and we could say only 1 parking spot per unit shall be provided if we wanted to.
I actually don't. As one of the rare times I disagree with Barb.
Where does it say maximum? I'm not seeing that.
Under the title D, it says maximum. That's the only reason I think that.
I don't see it either.
I don't see it, but
Yeah, it's,
It just says maximum
here.
building size.
maximum building size and density. It doesn't say
Yes.
parking though.
Yeah.
you could clarify that. I mean, usually it's a minimum, but if you want to put, I think that it's, again, the fact that you're bringing it up and questioning it means that it's not clear.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I might go for a minimum of 1, and then we could maybe specify a maximum of 2. I mean, I guess my feeling is, honestly, this is a rural community, and much as we'd like to say we want to encourage people to use the bus system, et cetera, it is a challenge. It can be a challenge even to get to the bus stop, right? So I hope people use electric cars, right? But nevertheless, I think that we need to not, given that people are likely to have cars anyway, I wouldn't want to mandate only one parking spot per unit, because then that might lead to parking issues. So we could say one, minimum one, maximum two or something, or it could be something that the review board, a minimum of one, and the review board can look at the design, and if they're all single person units, they can specify one number. I don't know, but it does matter, as Barb said, are these designed to house 2 or 3 adults in a unit or 1 adult in a unit? So
So I'd
anyway,
Sorry, I'd
I'm
like to
done.
make, I'd like to make a motion that item B read, a minimum of 1 parking spot per unit shall be provided.
I'll second that.
Minimum?
A minimum, so just, it could be more, a minimum.
Correct.
We have a second.
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
Bruce was gonna say something.
Bruce, no?
Yeah, I was gonna say something before about as far as, I would say that if it's a single occupancy unit, it would definitely, why couldn't we say you can only have 1 parking spot? That would stop people from having 2 different vehicles or somebody staying. But what Barb just said is fine.
Okay.
One parking spot, minimum, and there's room to have more if you need it.
Okay, so it says a minimum of 1 parking, and I'm gonna get rid of the S, parking spot per unit shall be provided.
I'm in favor. I just, again, throw us out, is there any reason to ever put a maximum in, or does that get too complicated?
I think it's too complicated, but.
All right. I agree.
God, can't type tonight at all.
So what are we saying?
Just a minimum of 1 parking spot per unit shall be provided. Okay. Okay, so, and structure shall be of an architectural style that emulates single-family residences and building design, entrance and other architectural details to the maximum extent practical. That leaves a lot up there, is what I think. So it's basically saying, kind of make it look like a single-family residence if you can.
Yes, that's what it's saying. It's basically, yes, that's what it's saying, and it's kind of, it gives, by having something in there allows the review board to actually review what the exterior of the buildings are gonna look like.
And I think
Yeah,
that's,
this is highlighted, I assume in part, maybe Ernie flagged it in the earlier draft, I don't know, but I'm in favor of keeping that in.
okay, I think, anyone else? I think that's fine too. I'm gonna take the highlight off.
It's probably a comment. You have to.
Yeah, it was a
resolve-
comment.
You have to resolve the comment.
Okay, I'll see if I can find that.
It's,
Well, if Nan hits the check mark by my name there, it should go away.
Okay, good. Then is there anything else in this section that anyone thinks needs to have changes? This is,
We should discuss J, which is also highlighted. And my question there is about these buffer areas, which I like the idea of, but again, a lot of such structures in town are someone has taken a house or a barn and converted it. So does that mean they have to go plant a buffer around, the yard that, has been that way forever? They haven't really changed the exterior of the building. So I'm just wondering what the implications of this particular requirement.
yeah, I think that's kind of far reaching, and, if someone takes a single family house and converts it into however many units, it's one thing. I think that was originally oriented to the, the big things that might come in that, that's where, I know the note on that one was, let's see, I think it was Ernie objected to this one, but I can say that the number one issue for people trying to do affordable housing is NIMBYism, meaning not in my backyard. As soon as people get a whiff of some of these things coming in, You get a lot of people who start objecting to them, and it's almost always because of they're next to it or nearby it. They don't, so this was a nod to, again, the special use permit and trying to fit in a use so that would be more compatible with single family residences. So I would say that maybe this does not apply to like a single structure, but when you have multiple multifamily structures
Yeah,
is where it often comes in, or big ones.
Yeah, I'd like to see the focus of it narrowed in some way like that. And I didn't know if like saying adaptive, it doesn't apply to the adaptive reuse of existing structures or something, but maybe your phrasing of multi-building units need this buffer.
Or both. You could say this does not apply to adaptive reuse of existing buildings. And it does apply to other multifamily developments, including, when multiple structures exist or something like that.
Okay, something like that, like it does not apply to adaptive reuse, except does apply to anything with 2 or more separate structures or buildings or something. So even if you're converting 2 or 3 existing buildings, maybe you should have to do it. I don't know. What other people think?
How's that? I wrote, this does not apply to adaptive use of existing buildings, but does apply to developments with several buildings. Several structures?
I wonder if you have to be more specific than several. like,
Right.
Yeah,
have
I'd
an actual
suggest
number.
2 or more.
2 or more, yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'm happy with that. Everyone happy with that?
I'm happy.
Good. Lighting seemed good. We didn't have any comments in that. We have a dark sky compliant. We have internal access roads.
Yeah, so I think, check that note, Nan, on internal access roads. I think that may just be the one that says, check the town.
Standards. Okay, well,
Yeah, I mean, I looked it up. Many communities have a local law that's highway standards that tells you how new roads are to be built. And I didn't see any standalone, but I wanted to make sure that you didn't have anything like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
Mark, maybe help me out. There's a highway classification law. We have A, B, and C. And I don't know if it specifies the construction standards, either in terms of amount of surface or radii of curves or anything. Mark, do you remember?
I think it does have some specifications. We can look that up. I'm pretty sure.
And what's the name of that one?
It's probably called the highway classification, something la da 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 da.
what's the trigger for when somebody builds a road? Say they have, what's the trigger for how many units before the town takes that road over?
Well,
This
the
is saying
town
the
never
will
has
not.
to take it. Yeah, the town never has to take a road over. It's their choice, but I mean, that I have to go back to your subdivision law to see if it's defined that way, but a major subdivision is defined as having a road. So I would say, the trigger would be any subdivision that includes more than a driveway to each house. But so is this highway classification system, is this a local law or was it a guideline or what?
No, I think it's a local law. Let's see.
It's a local law.
Yeah.
I can go find it.
Okay, he's gonna go find it.
Okay,
And then we're up, after this, we're up to conservation subdivisions.
Yep.
We're gonna discuss next week. And I think that I think end of that article then. Right?
Well, let's see, what do you propose? I have a couple of questions. I mean, one is, I think we could talk about some, I know there's a question of whether we have it at all, I suppose. But I had some questions inside it that we could potentially deal with.
Okay,
Or not, or you were saying go back to Article 5. Is that your other intent?
my other intent was to go back to Article 5, which we discussed, and there were a couple of questions we had for Nan. And then I think
Okay.
that we adopted. Because we had
Okay.
made a lot of changes.
Okay, we can adopt most of them. I am not ready on the riparian section to sign off on that. I think there's some changes I would like to suggest we make in that once I fully understand everything. And that reads to get answers from Darby, and actually Nan, I sent you a couple questions too, which I will send again. They got buried in all the emails last
I
week.
did send you a response this afternoon.
Oh, well, see, I'm just behind the times. So thank you so much. So, I think there's a lot in Article 5 we could agree on, Jean, but I'm not ready to say goodbye to Article 5.
Okay, but maybe we can clean it up a little bit.
Sure.
That would be nice.
So
Okay,
you want to go back to Article 5?
Yeah,
I'm
that's
thinking,
fine.
yes, we'll come back.
Yeah.
When Mark comes back, we can at least fix that section. And then I think what we'll do when we meet next, which is in 2 weeks, we'll talk about conservation subdivisions a lot and figure out what we're doing with that whole section and I think we have a lot of confusion about what they are. And I'm hoping that, Nan, you can show us some examples and that we can figure them out.
Okay,
That would be nice. But let's go back to Article 5, which, Nan, you weren't here when we were doing this. But I think we
Right.
have now. And we don't have to do this in detail. We just had a couple of questions that we wanted to ask you, I think.
okay.
I think one of the first questions is actually right on page 1 of this, Article 5.1B. Because I want people to I think I want myself to understand this, that says up to 3 principal dwellings shall be permitted on each lot unless the lot size is of such size as to be unable to meet all water and septic system requirements. And then sightings of such dwellings shall be done in a manner so that the parcel can. So I think from some of the open meetings that we had, the public meetings that we had, that was a question that people asked, like, well, what can I do with my lot? Can I divide it in half? And have one of my kids build a house on it? And we said, well, yes, in general. So I think we just have to make clear that how does this go with the 3 acres? Let's talk about that. Like, how does this fit in?
Yeah, and I don't remember, the earlier discussions of this. Again, you can make your own rules. But if you set a density, 3 acres per, 1 dwelling per 3 acres, then that dictates how many houses you can get on a parcel. So if you have 3 acres, you get 1 dwelling. Except for the accessory dwellings, which is not count towards the density.
Right.
If you have 12 acres, you get 3 dwellings and so forth, or 4 dwellings, 4 dwellings. So I'm not sure. So I know there's confusion. And actually, my opinion of your subdivision law is where it says it allows 3 dwellings on a parcel is really a zoning regulation, not a subdivision regulation. That's one of the things that I believe is in great need of being addressed in your subdivision law. It's the density of your zoning law that establishes how many houses can be built on a parcel.
Right.
So what you have here is really not consistent with your use table. It's consistent with your subdivision law, but it's not consistent with your use table.
So what I'm seeing with this is you could do this, but you'd have to have a lot that was 9 acres.
Correct.
If you're in the ag rural.
Right, in the ag rural, right. Right, that's why the original language was one principal dwelling. So it should really be written that the number of houses is dictated by the size of the lot and the district that you're in. So I don't know, I know Barb had comments on this. I know there's been comments in the public. And I don't really know how to rectify this discrepancy between zoning and subdivision. This is definitely an issue.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So, Bill,
All right, so yeah, I mean, Nan stole most of my thunder, so great, thank you, Nan. No, that's good. I mean, because I think this just traces, this traces back the fact that our existing subdivision law allows 3 dwellings in a parcel, which Nan has said from to me a while ago, that's kind of crazy, because it just makes things complicated, and that's what we're seeing. It makes life complicated. But the part of the question that came up, Gene, I think is always is that and this just, let's reiterate this every time that someone asks a question, that any lot that's existing at the time zoning is passed, a lot of record, can be split in half. If it's 1 acre, half an acre, 2 acres, even that in the ag rural district, even though that does not meet the 3 acre rule, that lot can be split in half. So that's the one part. This is a totally different thing. This is talking about sort of like lots in general and traces back to, again, the fact that we didn't have zoning for hundreds of years and the subdivision law was written that way. So yeah, I think we need to fix the subdivision law. And I don't know. That's what
but
it
in
takes.
the thing that's clear about I don't know where it is that it's clear about it being split in half.
Yeah, that's in the non-conforming section, and I think that I'm just writing myself a note, is that I think in here, we at least have to refer to that section or repeat it here. Because I think that's gotten missed in all of the discussions. No one
Yes.
probably even read it to the end to even know where that was. So it's buried in there. And I think we need to be more upfront about it, but I am, the way zoning works, allowing 3 dwellings per lot, regardless of the size, is not what you're trying to do. I mean, that's why you set a density of 1 unit per 3 acres.
Yeah, so I'm going to vote that we strongly urge that be changed in the subdivision law. And I mean, I guess also make clear though, I mean, so if you have a parcel now and you divide off 2 acres to give to your kid after zoning is passed, they cannot then 10 years from now split that 2 acres in half, right? It's only existing lots of record that have that magical ability that independent of size, they can be split in 2 pieces, not in half, in 2 pieces. And yeah, I think that we should go to a dwelling per lot. It just seems to make life a lot simpler.
I do too. So I think B has to be rewritten.
But unfortunately, we have to rewrite the subdivision law first,
Well,
right? Otherwise,
yeah,
we're in conflict.
I don't, this one might be where, I mean, the real fix is to fix the subdivision law. An attorney, this is where we might need an attorney help on how to rectify it in the meantime. I don't know. I mean, zoning, I was always, my experience has been that zoning takes precedence, it sets the density, it sets those rules, and subdivision is just how those lots are created. So that's why a subdivision law that says 3 dwellings can be put on any lot doesn't even have anything to do with subdivision. It's a zoning issue. So I don't know. I don't really know how to rectify the 2 right now.
I guess I think that we should do is we should write it the way we think it should be. And we should also do that with the subdivision law when we come to it, because it's in there, right? And we
Well,
should
no, the
write-
actual law is separate from this. That's a whole other
Correct.
can of worms.
Right.
Well, we could make the changes that are an overlap and make them in there, and then we should have a piece of paper that says, this is what we think you should do.
Right, I agree.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
okay.
can be amended, so.
Yeah. And it should all happen at once if it's gonna happen. I see applause and thumbs up and other things. Though
Yeah.
I'm on Zoom with several people who have but randomly thumbs come up, so I'm very confused by that. It's an artifact
It's
of
a good
some,
thing.
it's just like thumbs appear suddenly, we're very confused.
Sounds good.
Okay, so I think what we're saying here is that Nan is going to rewrite section B for us. In a way that gets rid of this 3 principal dwellings thing, which makes no sense. And also it says that any lot of record can be split in 2. And when we say split in 2, do they have to be exactly half?
No.
No.
It has to be clear that it can be in any way. Right? Okay,
This is section D, you said?
B as in Bruce,
Okay.
yeah.
So I found the.
Yeah, so it's like subpoint C would become something about the existing lot of record, right? I mean, I think it should be its own category under here.
Yes, and then we should have something about the existing lot of record. Good, okay, so let's hold that and we'll go to Mark, who will tell us about this law.
So it's local law 2 of 1996. I'll have to check. I thought it was on the website, but it might not be. It has a long title. In a local law in relation to the classification of low volume rural town roads, semicolon, the establishment of maintenance and rehabilitation guidelines for such roads, and the procedure to be followed to designate particular roads according to classification. So at the end, it has the different classification of roads, and then it has tables.
Yeah, it's a table.
There are tables showing the requirements for different types of roads.
Okay, so can you send Nan the title at least? So we can write that down.
It was 2 of 1996.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah, I'll check it when I'm off the meeting and make sure you
I
get it.
can look, yeah, it's right on Caroline local laws.
Okay,
Okay. All right. I'll look it up.
It's called road classification.
okay.
And then there's also the classification of roads and minimal maintenance roads from 1998. And I want to, you know, that one of my nephews was here visiting, and something tried to send him up a road that no longer exists, that connects the very far end of Baylor Road to Yable Road,
Mm.
and is now, I believe, a cow pasture.
That's Patrick.
No,
No,
it doesn't exist. There's no road.
Oh, okay.
It's like, he was like, I'm stuck in a pasture. I was like,
Yeah.
back up. Get out of there. I don't know what the hell he was on. He's from St. Louis. He was very confused.
Oh, I know what you mean. The end of Baylor.
Yeah, Yeah.
I didn't rescue, but I found a guy he was trying, same thing.
yeah.
He was delivering, I can't remember what, he had a big delivery truck. He was at the bottom of that hill.
Yeah.
with about a foot of snow on the ground, sideways. And he was looking for a tow truck.
Hey, is that the end of Baylor Extension you're talking about?
Baylor Extension, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, somebody lives down there.
Someone does,
Yeah, God bless them, we
that's
said.
their driveway.
Yeah, it was,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's Simone Lackey. It's her driveway.
yeah, okay, so that's good. So we've straightened that out. We're gonna go back now to. I think we've made great progress there, because I have to say, I was always confused about this. I didn't understand it. And I thought, I should understand this. Okay, so I think if Nan rewrites B.
Yep.
And we're saying that we're going to insert something about C, which is about perhaps the cutting a parcel into 2 pieces. And then we go on, and there's this right to farm statement, which everyone seems happy with. And I think then we got rid of all of the general environmental performance standards. And we have this specific
Yeah.
environmental.
I'm gonna pause, just, this is the thought I've been rattling around in my brain. So we have 2 extra minutes here, so I'm gonna use them. So we got rid of indeed the general environmental performance standards. So in particular, we got rid of a lighting requirement here that would have applied to residential structures.
Right,
And the only lighting stuff we have left pretty much applies to commercial structures going through site plan review, which is very few things. I think that's okay, because I think it has to be okay. But what I think we need to do is maybe, once the dust has settled from zoning, is address lighting in a separate piece. It's too much to throw in here too at everyone also. And in addition to applying lighting standards for new construction, both residential and commercial, I would love to see something along the lines of Brighten Up Caroline, that I will call Darken Up Caroline, whereby we figure out a way to subsidize the conversion of existing non-dark sky compliant fixtures outside of residences. Because I think residential lighting is our biggest light pollution issue in Caroline. And we've taken out any tool for that right here. And I understand why we did that, and I'm cool with it. But I think that in the future, the town needs to address lighting. That's my piece. I'm done.
I'm gonna put that in the minutes.
Okay.
Okay. Include in minutes, okay. So the only thing that I see under D is we have to put in this date adopted thing about the natural resource inventory. So I'm not actually have a natural resource inventory.
No, we do. And there's a date adopted. I just don't know what it is.
Okay, so we'll find that out.
Yeah.
And then we go on. Were there other things that we did? The slopes we had figured out. The natural heritage, unique natural areas. I think we had figured out as well.
Keep scrolling down, Dan, please.
Oh, sorry, I'm making a note to myself.
Yeah, no, understood.
Then we're up to when development activity requires only a building permit. And then development standards for the ag rural district. And then we have conservation subdivision requirement in here as well. Which says that all major subdivisions in the ag rural district shall be designed as a conservation subdivision with a minimum of 50% of the lot permanently preserved as open space.
Yeah, so this would, if you decide that you don't want this in the Hamlet district, or you don't want conservation in the Hamlet district, you could, well, no, you wouldn't want to say that here, because this whole
Right.
section is for the ag rural district. So
Right,
this is fine the way it is.
Right. There's probably a Hamlet district section coming up, and
There
that's
is.
where it would be specified at
Right.
that time.
Right.
Okay. And
So if
then,
you change your mind about how you address conservation subdivisions, we'll have to revisit this.
okay. Then we've gone through all of this about getting rid of, in section, we got rid of number 4, we left in H, I renumbered all these things here. I'm on page 7. I'm in A, development guidelines for the agricultural rural district. So the number 1, and I'm number 1G, H, I. And then we go up to buffers, and this is where Bill wants to think about buffers some more, I think. Right.
I'm not sure we're into the riparian buffers yet.
Right, this is buffers between development and agriculture.
Yeah, so
Okay.
there's no problem with this section.
Okay, and this is all fine. Then we got rid of that linkages part because people were very confused about trail and pathway connections. And we stopped on June 28th, and then we went further next week. And one section we had some questions about still was the review board may require sidewalks to be installed when there can be a connection to existing adjacent sidewalks, or when, in the review board's opinion, provision of a sidewalk to enhance pedestrian opportunities. And I think everybody in general is happy with that, I thought, but, and I did check my notes, Barbara, about that. And because we said they may require them, but they don't have to. And my note said that was okay. Is that okay? Barb, Can't see. board.
It's fine with me, but I thought I had recalled that some people were not comfortable with this language, so I may be recalling
Yeah.
incorrectly.
Yeah, I think my notes said that we had changed, we had changed shall to may, and that made everybody feel okay about it.
I mean, we had a very extensive discussion about it. I mean, must, 20 minutes or something. We definitely went back and forth and around. So I would say I don't remember what we decided. So if that's what your notes say, you always
That's
watch
what
the
my
video.
notes said, so I think we're okay. Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, great. And then we had this part about a hydrogeological well yield test or down draw pumping test for any proposed projects, about adequacy of water supplies. And
Yeah, that goes back to what we were just talking about a little while
Right.
ago.
Right. So that would apply to any major subdivision. So it would apply
Correct.
to those multifamily housing units that we were just talking about if they qualified as a major subdivision. That is something that's putting in several units probably on different parcels. Converting a house, even 2 adjacent houses to 8-unit apartments would not trigger this.
Not here. I mean, this is a little more specific than what we said earlier this evening, where we kind of just said the review board may require a well pump test, but this one is specific in the ag district for major subdivisions or commercial land uses that rely on site groundwater withdrawals.
But just to clarify, this is in the Hamlet District section. You scroll
What are
up,
we in now?
it
Oh, yeah,
says Hamlet.
sorry. We are in the Hamlet district. This is for the Hamlet district.
Yeah.
And I don't think we have the same thing in the ag district.
Right.
Um,
I didn't remember seeing it at least. Yeah, it's unclear to me why it wouldn't be required in all districts, which means it would not be in the zone district specific section.
yeah, maybe you want to move it and make this for any development, anywhere.
Sounds reasonable to me.
I think it
Yeah.
is reasonable, I agree. Let's take section 8 here, and it's for components, and put it in the other section. Does that make sense, Nan? Can you do that?
Yep, so you want to move it to general, so it covers
Right.
everything. Okay,
Right.
I agree.
but still only major subdivisions and commercial or any use?
I guess major subdivisions, I think, let's all think about it a bit.
Wait, we had said except adaptive reuse of
Right.
existing structures. Yeah, so we
No,
didn't have an
that
exception.
was for the vegetative buffer that we said wasn't needed for adaptive reuse.
Oh,
only
sorry.
2 or more. So the water, it seems to me, yeah, it's got to be, we need some trigger that there's going to be enough new units that it seems worthwhile to do this. And so a major subdivision maybe is the right trigger for now. I guess I'm good enough with that. And if someone has a better idea of how to phrase a trigger that isn't just major subdivision, I'm all ears.
You could say something
Well,
like,
or as something that requires site plan review. You could have a commercial use, a non-agricultural commercial use that might be small, that uses a lot of water. Like I have another community that has I don't know, it's probably a 2,000 or 3,000 square foot building that they put up near an artesian well, and they're bottling water and they're drawing out huge amounts of water, even though it's a very small use.
There
Yeah.
is language in the site plan section on water, and I think one of them is something about water quantity testing if the review board thinks it's needed, but I can't remember the exact language. We may have to scroll down to there to see if that's adequate. But I think things undergoing site plan review, there's a water section in site plan review.
Okay,
So we should definitely check that.
So we'll have to figure out like what type of quantity we're talking.
Yeah, I mean, could it be something like a major subdivision or commercial land use that relies on site ground withdrawals? Or like the number, or 6 apartments or something, I don't know, some number of apartments that could also do that. Some number of dwelling units.
We would say like so much per unit or all for all of them.
This has a number, it has 1,000
Yeah.
gallons.
1,000 gallon, that's kind of the standard. You know, people get worried when you start withdrawing more than 1,000 gallons.
1,000 gallons per day, and in number 1 it does.
This
Yeah.
is, that's the sewage disposal flows equal to or exceeding 1,000 gallons.
You're right, on ground, oh no, but it also says on-site groundwater withdrawals and or on-site sewage disposal, so it's both,
Okay, so
It's sewage
1,000
and water.
gallons is for both.
yeah. Okay, then I think that covers it, don't you?
All right, so I will move this back into the general section and keep the trigger as major subdivision, commercial site plan review, or 1,000 gallons per day. Is that
Yes.
what I heard?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, let me just see.
1,000 gallons per day is a figure we should be using.
I'm thinking about what I know about apartments. And I think that most houses are using about 250 gallons a day.
All right. So I found the section in the site plan law as we have it currently, which I think, again, so the town had a site plan law originally from early 2010s that was revised in 2018, and then the task force revised further. But the vast majority of the words are from the original version, and I think this is some of that wording. So there is, you know, subpoint 4 under section, I don't know, 7.4A, subpoint 4 talks about water supply. And it's under the site plan, they have to identify the source of water. Has to comply with certain handbooks. When it's groundwater, when the proposed source of water for development is groundwater, the review board may require the applicant or developer to undertake well and pump tests to determine the adequacy of the supply of groundwater to serve the development. So that leaves it open to the review board to look at the use and make a determination if the pump test is needed. So that's what we have currently in site plan review.
So anything going through site plan review has that in it anyway, as
Right.
a potential trigger for the review board.
Right.
So this other kind of more general trigger that we're moving this section could be then major subdivisions or 1,000 gallons per day, and leave out the site plan review? Or put it
Potentially,
in just
no.
anyway?
Yeah, maybe put it anyway. And I mean, major subdivisions are one of the triggers of site plan review in the site plan law.
Right.
So major subdivisions go through not just subdivision review, but site plan review.
Yeah.
in the way our law are. So
Maybe I'm off the wall, but what you just read, Bill, sounded more to me like the review board would decide whether you have enough water for that dwelling, not how much you could use.
correct, it would say, we think you might be using enough water to cause a problem, so you've got to do a pump test to prove to us that your development is not going to cause a problem. And problem is very vague there. That's how I interpret that phrase.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's a good decision. And it will be interesting. I think what we can do then, if we can get through the rest of 5, is we can have kind of a cleaned up copy that just has the conservation subdivision part highlighted, because we haven't decided about that. But for the rest of this section, we have done, I don't see a lot that we're disagreeing with anymore. We got rid of, except for the riparian stuff that Bill wants to think about, right?
Oh, not just me. I'm going to make you guys think about it too.
Well, damn. Bill, I only have 256K. I'm just,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, right, I know.
It's,
Which one was that?
That was a long time ago. It's a wonder that I can function.
That's the box on your desk.
The little box on my desk, yeah. So
Try
I think-
85, try 85K.
I don't have that. That sounds really bad. Okay, so I think that we've actually cleaned up a lot of this section. Is there anything else that people had issues with in here? Not much that I remember of that way. We did the billboards. Everyone seemed to be happy about the rooftop equipment. The formula businesses we had finished up. Ambient noise levels and 55 decibels, whatever the heck that is.
Right.
Where are you? Where is this?
On page 25, under 6B, the operation.
But now you're in supplementary standards. Yeah, that's fine. We're in the next section, section 6. That's-
The operation of an equipment used by the home-based business shall not generate noise exceeding the ambient noise levels or 55 decibels. And then the question was, what does 55 decibels mean? Does it mean at any time? Does it mean 1 hour a day? What are we happy with?
All day long.
All day long?
Yeah.
I think, man, you need to tell us more about what other people have.
Well, and you were gonna send us some stuff from DEC or
Yes,
somebody.
okay. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
I fell down on the job on that one.
It's okay.
Okay.
So I want to toss out this idea, which I've now added in the comments, which is, I mean, I think, basically the idea is we want it generally quiet. I mean,
Right.
that's the goal. And so transient noises, occasional transient noises that are, maybe unavoidable. I mean, you can set a noise limit and someone drops up, a sheet metal plate, it's going to be loud temporarily. And, I'm not complaining about that. So
Yeah.
I was suggesting maybe some language of there is a decibel limit and then language that says, with occasional transient noises being allowed. And some of those are going to be intentional. Like I say, someone has a business where once every hour or two, they have to make a loud noise. I don't know what to do about that. That could be very irritating to the neighbors. On the other hand, if it only happens a few times a day, maybe that should be okay if they're generally quiet. So
I mean, what if you had a woodworking shop and you were sawing lumber?
right, so that wouldn't be generally quiet, right? That'd be generally noisy.
Yeah, and that'd be more than 55 decibels.
Yeah, so there needs to be a decibel limit, and if your general practice most of the time generates noise above that, you need to keep it noise shielded or something. But if every once in a while you do something noisier, do we need to say you can't ever violate 55 decibels? That's what I'm trying to get at, and I don't know the right way to.
Yeah, I mean, 55 decibels is very quiet. This is a problematic one. It might be that if you leave it at, it does not generate noise exceeding the ambient noise levels, at least forces somebody then to say, well, what is the ambient noise level? Maybe you're on Route 79 and the ambient noise level is already 65. And so so there's different places do different things, and noise is very complicated because it's not this is very simplified, having it as a one sentence thing. Some communities say not more than X% over the ambient noise levels, rather than a number, so that it doesn't matter where you start, it can't be more than X% above that. Other communities add in very detailed language that, that talks about it can't be, of an intensity more than X amount of time, in X type of noise. It can get very detailed. It can get as detailed as you want. So, I think that, I guess from a policy point of view, I would ask, what do you want to accomplish? Let's work backwards. What do you want to accomplish with this, with a section in the zoning? Then now this is home-based businesses. So, what do you want to accomplish?
I think we want to keep since home-based businesses are generally, I mean, it's kind of expecting to be in a residential place, that people are expecting you to be in a residence. We don't want the noise level to be much louder than what someone would expect from a residence. In a residence, I'm expecting that somebody's occasionally going to use a chainsaw, or going to occasionally mow their lawn, or all those kinds of things. But I'm not expecting 120 decibels constantly.
This is like a home-based business. This isn't a home.
Right, it is a home-based business, but I'm saying that, you know, if I have a home-based business, and I wouldn't want my next door neighbors, you know, to constantly be hearing me generate a huge amount of noise. From my home-based business.
Okay,
You only now hear me screaming occasionally, you know?
Yeah, and so I agree with Jean's take on it. You know, I think that the other thing, and this comes up under site plan where Ernie talks about it in sound, is that another way to go is to look at districts and set different sound levels in the different districts. But I kind of like let's refer to the ambient level, and Jean's take of, yeah, particularly as home-based businesses are going to tend to be in residential areas, so they should basically not generate a whole lot more noise than most of the residences there. I think that's a good way to put it, Jean, and so I think it must be something like, let's refer to the ambient level, would be the way to accomplish that.
Yeah. That's all I can think of anyway. Okay.
So did we describe in the definitions ambient noise levels?
I don't remember. I have to go look. at it.
Yeah, you can add it to our definitions what ambient
Yep,
noise level means.
okay.
Let me take my Zizol. Take my Zizol. Yeah.
Well, so are you gonna delete the 55 decibels, or is that staying in? If you're doing ambient noise level?
I think she's gonna write it, come back to it. Is that what you're gonna do, Dan? Give us.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can try. First of all, I want to send you DEC's guidance on noise, so you can be a little more familiar with it. I will send that out tomorrow. Let me see if I can tweak this one a little bit, so it's an added definition of ambient noise. I guess my feeling would be that probably taking out the 55 decibels. Remember, home occupations are not going through the review board. They're not being permitted. These are permitted uses. So these kinds of things are in there so that if someone complains, essentially the reality of these are, if someone complains that someone has a home occupation and they're really noisy, your code enforcement officer can have something in the law that says, oh, you know, you're not supposed to be doing that and creating nuisance noise.
I think that's why I need to know more about decibels, what different things would be, because I can't think of a business, a home-based business that would create a lot of noise. I'm trying to think about.
Well, you know, woodworking, a sawmill could be a home-based business. You know, you could have someone who makes,
And
you know,
a body shop.
A body shop, yeah,
One guy out of
those
his
are-
garage.
Yeah.
Stuff. Right.
but I'll send you that document. It has a nice chart in there about what noises or what things make certain noises.
Well, I looked up 55 decibels, and people have made kind of a big deal about, well, that's like a coffee percolator, or that's people having a conversation. I guess the point is, would you want to listen to that for more than an hour a day? Like maybe you wanted to sit in your backyard and you don't want to hear noise that's loud enough to be like a conversation for more than an hour. It would make it so that you couldn't enjoy your backyard, really. So I think just the decibel level isn't enough. I agree. I think it was with you, Bill, but it's got to be a time average where it becomes a nuisance.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll think about this once more. I don't think it's going to be easy to come up with, but I think we'll just give it our best shot. So the other things that I have on my kind of holdover parking lot list are thinking about the Caroline Hamlet.
Oh, right, we were gonna talk about that tonight, I thought.
Right. And I think we may have to hold that over because we've got about 10 minutes, and let's talk about it. Do you think that that's a place for additional commercial space? I mean, I went out there and I forgot to send Nan the street addresses, but I will do that. Because we were gonna have when Rick is back and can make us a map. And so I'll put it on the next thing. Looking at the Caroline Hamlet. It's houses right now. There's really nothing else in Caroline. It's houses. They are closer together than they are along the rest of Route 79.
Can you see this map? Is that map up on your screen?
You gotta switch what you're sharing.
Oh, shoot. Okay, hold on.
There we go. Now zoom in on what we're talking about.
What is that feedback? Anybody else hear that?
Yeah, I'm hearing a rump.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I don't hear it.
There you go.
It went away. So that's Caroline there. Is that what in the kind of darker beigey color?
No, this, I just pulled up these are agricultural areas. I just, cause this had the parcel map on it, so I just pulled it up. But isn't this the hamlet in here?
Yes,
That's about where it is.
yeah. It's I think that's Level Green Road that comes up.
Yeah.
And it's right around Level Green Road. So that's where it is. So, I mean, it doesn't look to me like a particularly great place for commercial development, but I'm just kind of wondering, or should we just make it a hamlet and not think about additional commercial development there?
That's kind of what I think the people are saying, but
Yeah, nobody, I mean, they just said, why did you leave us out? And I think that we could just make it a hamlet like some other hamlet.
I mean, I think there were two separate questions. Oh, and I see Tim. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna let Tim and Michelle speak first. Sorry. I will be good and raise my hand.
And then Michelle.
I was just gonna make a suggestion that you might consider, because it's mainly an agricultural area.
Yep.
If there's this kind of nostalgic wish for it to hamlet, couldn't be named a hamlet and still maintain it as an agricultural district?
Yes, in fact, we could say that the hamlet of Caroline is included in the agricultural rural district.
But it is now.
Yes, but we don't specifically say that, do we?
say it's a hamlet.
No, we don't call it out as its own place.
So we could say that, we could insert that the hamlet of Caroline is considered part of the agricultural rural district.
You're also gonna make a definition for hamlet.
And I did write a definition for hamlet, and I will send that to all of you.
So we have to be that.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very big.
So I guess, it is the idea that folks want the hamlet of Caroline recognized as a hamlet, or do you want to regulate it as a hamlet? Those are two different things.
I think they wanted to be recognized as a hamlet.
I think that's what they were saying, because historically they said they were a hamlet.
Yeah, I think it was just the recognition. And I can ask that question because I know who said it. I can just send that and say, would being recognized as a hamlet, but included in the agricultural rural zone be sufficient? Would that be good?
So is it not added into the hamlet Caroline Center? Is that what it is? It's not added to that?
No, because
It's not anywhere near Caroline Center.
Yeah, I mean, you could create the Caroline Hamlet, and then you could say all of the rules that apply to Caroline Center or Beesimer or Brooktondale or whatever you want also apply to Caroline.
Right.
If you want to regulate it as a hamlet. If you don't want to regulate it as a hamlet and you're going to treat it the same as everything else in the ag rural district from a zoning perspective, I'm not sure what you're getting by doing that.
Mere recognition.
Yeah, it has historical signs that say it's a Caroline.
It has signs that say the Hamlet of Caroline. So I will ask that question of the person who spoke. I mean, that just seems to me to be reasonable. Or do you want it to be something else? And then Bill and then Michelle.
I think Michelle had her hand up first.
That's all
Okay.
right. You can go ahead. Go ahead.
But so I think now there's three separate questions, but there were two. One is you asked this question about commercial stuff. I think
Right.
there was a question of opening up or to designate more land along Route 79 as a commercial area, another commercial, whatever you call it, focused commercial district. That to me is a totally separate question from recognizing Caroline as a hamlet, because I was not thinking of those as the same place necessarily.
Yeah, it just occurred to me as like, well, if you want more space, this is a place that is. It's kind of like, it's like more like Slaterville, like West Slaterville than anything else, I think, in a way.
Right. So it does add commercial area if, as Nan points out, you treat it like one of the other hamlet zones, because they have more allowed commercial activities than the ag rural district. So one way to recognize it would be to recognize as a hamlet and indeed give it some set of rules similar to, say, Beesimer. And that would not do what some people have asked, which is we need more space for large commercial activities. So
Right.
that's a separate question we still should tackle at some point, maybe
Yeah.
looking over somewhere else along Route 79, either expanding our existing one or adding some space between Caroline and Slaterville Springs. I do not know the answer to that one, but I'd like us to look at that. I personally don't, again, I'm not from there. So if the words Caroline is an historical hamlet, but is just being treated just like the ag, it is part of the ag rural district, is enough that's what they want, great. But I would tend to think that if we're going to call it a hamlet, we should get it some set of rules. Again, maybe not many additional commercial activities from the ag rural, but if we're going to go through the labor of delineating it, then we should give it its own set of rules, or just give it, you can certainly say it's the same as Caroline Center. It could be Caroline Center and Caroline, could be one column in the use table.
Okay. Yeah, I think, there are these separate things. And also we have at least one person suggesting that we should take part of a commercial district out. And that's the part that's across from the Caroline School. Because that's also been brought up, that she doesn't think that that's an appropriate place to be a commercial district because of the presence of the school and I think the fact that hill comes down on 79 and that crossroads from Thomas Lounsbury Road there is a site of accidents.
And then not yet, because I want to hear what Michelle has to say, but I'd like to zoom over to that commercial district maybe now and look at that quickly, because I had one other question about that. But Michelle, we keep getting put off, so.
No, I was just going to say, I mentioned to somebody from the History Center that we were thinking of making Caroline a hamlet, and she was excited. So it's not just one person that would like it to be a hamlet, but other people would like it to be recognized as a hamlet. And I could see it being more like, Caroline Center. I mean, there's nothing in Caroline Center either. I mean, my goodness. So
Right.
I could see having it be more like Caroline Center. I think it'd be all right if there was a general store out there or something like that. Anyway.
One issue I see is that a lot of those parcels, some of them are very deep. They have
Right.
buildings near the road, but either you cut them or you have all of the parcel in the Hamlet district.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right.
So looking at the,
I will write up what I think I will ask this question and send it out and see what you think. And the people that I think spoke to this were R.C. Quick and a woman who I can see in my brain, and I think it's
Kathy Nix.
Kathy Nix, exactly. Okay.
Well, and then the woman, Becky DeWitt from the Historical Society. or, the Caroline History Center, whatever it's called.
Caroline, yeah, Caroline History. Okay,
Right, do folks have bandwidth to look at the commercial zone quickly?
sure.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm just trying to pull up the best map.
Is there any gonna be at the next meeting?
I didn't know he wasn't gonna be here tonight, so I'm hoping he's okay. But the next meeting is, 2 weeks from tomorrow. It's the 16th.
16.
And did I think I told you all, we're not meeting on the 23rd. It's an election day and it's a kind of a critical election day and I don't want anyone to feel that they don't get to go vote at least twice. So,
All right, so I think I mentioned this once before. So yeah, I mean, you can see the pink area across from the elementary school that Ellen has talked about a couple of times.
right,
But again, what we've got here pretty much are all existing commercial properties.
right,
Meaning that there's no, unless they get subdivided, there's no place for the next large commercial business to locate in the town.
right.
Unless obviously someone, I guess, could buy one of the parcels and then petition to have, it added to that district. I'm just wondering the wisdom, either for or against, just designating a couple more of the parcels there that are currently residential.
Like
if
here?
there- Well, actually, I'm going the other way. If you go just to the right of Celebrations. So on the south side of Route 79, there are 2 parcels that are pink. If you go to the east of that, so go all over the 2 easternmost, sorry, 2 westernmost pink parcels on the south side.
The magenta ones.
Magenta,
The
sorry.
part.
All right, magenta.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not a color guy. All right, so to the right of that, to the east of that, there are other parcels that are currently part of Beesimer that could be colored as part of the focused commercial district. They could continue as residential parcels for as long as the current owners wish to do so. But it means that someone, when they decide to sell their property, might be willing to buy them for commercial use if we thought that was an okay thing to do there. I don't know. I want to throw the idea out. I don't really know what would be good. But it feels like we don't have any place for the next large commercial place to come. Maybe that means we don't want another one in town.
I think what I'm gonna do is write in this, that on the next meeting, we're gonna talk about hamlets and we're gonna talk about commercial districts.
Yeah, because Ernie brought that up too, and I brought that up also. about
Okay, we'll see if there's,
some more commercial.
and we'll, look at the maps and talk about this. Because that's something that's come up from the first. Okay, and I think we will have 5, Article 5, pretty much ready to put to bed, except we want to talk a little bit about riparian buffers. And we want to talk about conservation districts. So that's a meeting all in and of itself that we can get done. And if we do that, then we'll have, I think, Articles 5 and 6 pretty much nailed down. Oh, joy and rapture throughout the land, okay? But I am not going to be here for
What
the.
section is that?
I am not going to be here on the 16th, but I will be on a Zoom. I'm going to be in Rhode Island. I might be on the beach.
Oh,
So, yeah,
that'll be good.
yeah. And
Don't need any lobster.
I'm gonna eat lobster. That's how I am. I'm just gonna eat lobster.
I just did that.
You just did that. It's a good thing, isn't it? Okay, so thank you, everyone. And I will get notes out fairly quickly and maybe Nan and I, you and I can talk and look at Article 5 and 6 if you've got any questions. Okay?
Okay,
Great. Okay. Thank you. Thanks, everyone. We got a lot done tonight.
bye.